It didn't listen to me. It walked out of the thicket. It turned around and looked at me.
They looked up, and in this tree, there was a monkey man. And the monkey man jumped down out of the tree and started running away.
And suddenly they're right in front of the car. He slams on the brakes and manages to stop. And he's skidding because it's like quite, gravelly. And literally for about a second and a half, they just stood there because they don't know where to go. And you tell them panicking. They're like really nothing. And their face is like twitching.
Welcome back to Bigfoot Society, a podcast where we focus on cryptids, the strange, and the unexplained of this world. If you've got a story or something weird to share, send an email over to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support this show, head on over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now, on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the pleasure of talking to Mr. Kevin Llewellyn from the Spokane, Washington area. A Bigfooter out there. How's it going today, Kevin?
Oh, great. Lots to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a lifelong Bigfoot enthusiast. But I've lived in this area all my life, and I graduated from Washington State University College of Veterinary Medicine, and I was a veterinarian for 35 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I recently retired, though, and so that means more time to get out there in the woods. And as a veterinarian, I like to approach things from a biology, scientific angle, and approach things first that way. But what got me started or got my interest in Bigfoot was at the age of 10 years, I saw Roger Patterson present in person.
This is so cool.
The Patterson-Llewellyn film here in Spokane. And that night I got his autograph.
Wow.
Later I signed up for his bulletins. I sometimes refer to them as newsletters, but he sent out, about 3 a year. And I had 7 original bulletins from him that I kept all through my life.
Man.
And just recently I thought, I need to do something with this history. I mean, I had my original membership certificate,
That's so cool.
That came with these bulletins and such. And so all this, like I say, originally from Roger Patterson, and I recently donated them to the North American Bigfoot Center in Boring, Oregon, Cliff Barrickman's, Bigfoot Center. So.
That's one of the big takeaways I had from your book, Incessantly Bigfooting, that you can get, which is a really well written book. It's very interesting, but I like how in that book you actually have quotes from Patterson's bulletins kind of interspersed through the chapters, which is really cool. Being able to read, some parts of those bulletins that Roger Patterson would send out. So you were a very young individual, I would imagine, when you saw Patterson present that film. Do you remember anything that struck you, being able to see him present, like what came across to you as how he was as a person or anything like that? Or
I still remember these guys on stage in cowboy boots, and
wow.
I still remember that. And then I remember the film coming on, and on the big screen like that in the Spokane Coliseum, and my mind was just like, look at that animal, look at that move. That's an animal. That's not a person in a suit.
Wow. Yeah.
And I still, that just, and that's just been with me all my life, was that was my first thoughts. That's an animal.
What approximate year was that, would you say?
It would have been that. I can't remember the month, and I wish I would have had. I don't know if they gave out any kind of official tickets or anything. I wish I would have had an original.
Oh,
ticket.
that would have been cool. Yeah,
that would have been something too to go along with getting his autograph and that. But anyway, he did this tour. So he was down in Portland and Salem, Oregon. He was in Idaho. I can't remember all those different places. Was he in Missoula, Montana? And he did this tour before going to Vancouver, British Columbia. And that's where all the primatologists, all the scientific people gathered to watch the film, was in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's really cool. So this is probably take place a few years after 67 then?
Oh, just actually months.
Oh, it was months after?
Yes, months.
Really?
Yeah. And when I signed up for his bulletins, my original membership certificate, it was dated like March of 69.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So he was all involved after, of course, October of 67. And of course, he was all involved those next several months and that next year with, the film and everybody analyzing the film.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
intense.
then he got his Bigfoot Association, his research association going, and put out these newsletters, and $6 a year back then. And so that's
awesome.
I signed up the first of 1969. Then I signed up for.
It really was the original Bigfoot Patreon, Patterson's Club. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah,
cost and everything.
You were talking about, the quotes and that, and the things that he wrote in those newsletters. That his thinking was, we're still doing the same things now, that he was wanting to do and doing back then. Wow. His thinking was far ahead, and he was
so wild.
He knew Bigfoot.
Was Bob Gimlin on stage during that as well?
No,
that's just my lack of information.
Okay, yeah. If you go check with the history or follow the history, there was a separation there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, so, gotcha. So some other gentlemen that were involved.
There were some other, there were some other people.
Gotcha. There. All right, fair enough. Wow. The cool thing that you've already mentioned it, but people can go to the North American Bigfoot Center and they can see your stuff that you donated in, I believe it was 2011. Cliff has that up on, people can actually see it. And he took a cast, made a copy of one of your Bigfoot casts as well, right?
Yeah, I had a sighting, and I was fortunate enough to have a track there then, and I got a cat. I was on the hillside where it went over the embankment from the Forest Service road, the logging road, and there on the hillside was this track, and we walked up to it, and the first thing that I know, there was a big toe, but then also almost what caught my attention more was there was this like little toe that was angled out. And it had slid and pushed up dirt in front of the toes. And I always try to take pictures of any possible track that I find, and not just one picture from above. We see that all the time, right? Everybody wants to take a picture from above. They put their boot by it, but due to light angles, you should take 5 pictures of each track, from the front, from the back, from each side, and from above. And so I walked up to it and was going to start taking pictures, and I actually slipped on the hillside and slid on my hip.
Wow.
And so I just, so I'm like, forget the pictures. I need to try to cast this thing. And the cast material was starting to run downhill, of course.
I was going to ask,
I was panicking.
Okay.
It was like,
oh man.
I was like, oh no, this isn't going to work. But the cast did turn out very well, and Cliff Barrickman made copies of it, and he has then a copy. I have the original, but he has a copy on display at the North American Bigfoot Center. And so on the, you know how these Forest Service roads, these logging roads are cut into the hillsides. And so on the left was the hillside going up, and on my right then was the drop off going downhill. And there was this boulder that was like 3.5 feet high, and I measured later, approximately 3.5 feet high, 3.5 feet wide, extended up the road for 4.5 feet. And I look up, come around this corner, and I look up ahead, and I see black between this boulder and the hillside on the left.
Oh, wow.
But but there's black decaying wood all over the forest. So I didn't think anything of it, And so, but I kept approaching this boulder, and the road had to curve around it just a little bit. And it was really narrow at that spot. So my focus went to the, like, okay, I got to creep around this boulder,
Sure.
Yeah. And paying attention to how the road went there, just wide enough to get around it. And all of a sudden this figure leaped out in front of me, behind the boulder. Yeah. And so I did not see a face. This was side view, but it was in the air. It leaped. Oh, and man. Yeah, and there was no nose, no ears. It was black, short hair or bear length hair. And some people may say, well, you saw a bear, but it was there was no nose, there were no front legs, there were no arms outstretched. Even though it reminded me of, like, if I was looking from the side view at a linebacker lunging to tackle a quarterback.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So if that gives you an idea, then, and it was about the size of a football player, like that, about the size of like a linebacker. And so, like I say, no arms even stretched out. And what really confused me, what I really had to process for a while, was there was these things sticking up, and it was like, it's like a wingtip. It reminded me, your mind goes to common things that you see. And so it's like a raven wing, crow, a wingtip. What is this? Well, after a while, I realized its arms were back along its sides and its hand was sticking up then. And it's the fingers that I saw sticking up. See, picture that?
I've seen that imagery in other places too. I can't remember where, but that sounds so familiar. Wow.
Yeah. And if it was a bear, then my great friend and fellow investigator and his wife were in their car behind me, and this road was getting overgrown, and it even dead ended back up, whatever, couple of miles later. Sure. But anyway, the boughs were growing into the road, and of course my truck gets scratched up. I don't know, when I come back from trips, I don't know what's more scratched up, me or my truck, And so but anyway, there were boughs sticking out in the road, and it landed on the edge of the road before going down over the embankment on my right side. And I could see this like a black butt, part of the body. Yeah. But there were boughs sticking out. And so anyway, it went over the embankment. We got out, it came to a stop. We got out, and my friend says, well, look, it almost was like there's two impressions here, like maybe where 2 feet landed. And then we looked over the embankment, and there was this little clear area right there. He didn't go into the timber. There was a little bit of a open spot on this hillside. And that's where it's like, when I'm like, well, look, there's something there. There's like a track, a skid mark, and then even further down below that was a true skid mark, no track, just a slide, a skid. So if it was a bear, there should have been 4 tracks, 4 slide marks, 4 legs. This was like something on 2 legs.
Wow.
So like I say, then I got the cast that turned out well, and it's good to practice casting, anything. I've got some casts of cougar tracks that show the claws.
Okay.
Cool. Up. So yeah. So, when you're out there, hey, make a cast of whatever, bear track, a cougar track, just practice.
What material do you find best works for you?
I love the dental stone.
Okay, I haven't heard that yet. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's even a little bit, all the chemical, I don't know all the all the chemistry with,
Sure.
with the materials, but it's maybe even a little better than the hydrocal.
Okay.
Ultracal. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that one comes up a lot when I talk to researchers. So a few follow-up questions on that. So were you able to get a really good look at the Bigfoot's face?
No, because
Okay.
it was sideways.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it went sideways. And so it was like, and before we were on another Forest Service road, and then we turned up this one, and we were climbing up there a little bit. But down where we turned, there was a couple elk. They weren't spooky. They weren't running. They were just standing there.
Okay.
And we drove by them. And so, was a Bigfoot out following the elk or seeing where they were at or chasing them, maybe, who knows, or maybe one didn't have anything to do with the other. But then did it hear us coming up the road? And it was like, oh,
yeah,
I'm going to jump behind this, or I'm going to get down behind this boulder. And so
wild.
And so it was trying to hide. And then as we kept approaching, I was getting closer and closer. And, and I can't tell you exactly the distance, but because I was moving, and I can't even tell you how fast I was going. I don't know if I was doing 5 miles an hour, 10, 15 miles an hour. And I'm getting closer to this boulder. And then it was like, oh, I got to get out of here.
Wow.
I was trying to hide, if it was trying to hide behind that boulder. So how often, probably, in my opinion, all the time, do they get down on all fours to hide? Do they get down on the brush? Do they stand behind a tree and let us walk right by? They remain motionless. They can blend in with the terrain.
It's wild. And
just, yeah. So one thing that Roger Patterson said too in those bulletins of his was that he believed that, they can completely elude us if they so desire.
Sure. I believe that as well. And maybe for a few different reasons that, science doesn't fully understand yet. Who knows? But that sighting that's an incredible story. Have there been other Bigfoot reports, evidence found in that same area, or?
Yeah, great question, because actually I do travel around the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, exactly.
And I go check out areas where there have been reports. And so this area, I did a report, interviewed somebody. It was a Class B, a strong Class B, which is not a sighting. So I did a strong Class B in that area. And then my friend and I had been there the summer before, and we had some stuff that we heard. And so then we decided to go back, and we decided to go a little bit further north. And then that's when we were going into this area.
Okay.
And
Very cool. Let's rewind a little bit. Was there you had the probably super influential, watching the copy of the film, or maybe even the original film presented by Roger Patterson a few months after the 1967 sighting, roughly about, it's the 55th anniversary. Was there a certain point though, after that in your life where, you had something that really like clicked it in, like, okay, I want to super look for Bigfoot now? Or was it that initial, seeing the film that just set you on this path through your entire life?
Oh, well, I kept, of course, my interest then was sky high.
Yeah.
And so, and our local newspaper would carry articles now and then back then. And so I would cut those out. I kept my ear. Yeah. I just kept my ears open for any reports about somebody seeing a Bigfoot. And of course, back then there was no social media,
right?
And so with my age that I'm at now, and but anyway, back then, I just had to, things came through the grapevine, and just like, well, did you hear there was a sighting, and I'm like, where? where in Northeast Washington, and that, what time of day was it, and things like that. And so just kind of, in the memory banks, things would go. And so, yeah, my dad was an avid outdoorsman. He had me out there in the woods when I, could barely keep up with them walking. Yeah. And so, and of course he would say, it was like, oh, I've hunted all over, Eastern Washington and this and that. I don't believe in Bigfoot. I don't think it's out there, but when I would be out there, I just, kept my eyes and ears open and just in case.
Nice.
Yeah.
A few questions in my mind right now. Just randomly, I want to ask you, because it sounds like you've been involved with Bigfooting for a long time. A period of Bigfoot history that I think is really interesting. It's probably because of my age as well. What was it like researching Bigfoot in the 1990s?
I heard my first Ohio howl, around.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Before it was even called Ohio howl.
Wow.
I believe it was
really
nicknamed, Ohio howl in 1995 then. But, but I had heard things like that before. I'd been paralleled, the Bigfoot behavior of paralleling and I, and things like that. And if I would have known back then what I know now, or what I've developed now, my approach that I have now, if I would have had that back then, I could have maybe had even more encounters or heard more things then too. And so, because now I approach things that, I want to just have them be curious of what I'm doing. I want to then have them feel comfortable of what I'm doing out there and going camping and such. And I want them to come into camp or hang around camp. I want to learn, what is attracting them? What are they interested in? If they come into camp, what are they doing? What's attracting them? Are they going to play with a camp stove or what? Anything. It's like, I want to know. And I want them to come back, then feel comfortable to come back the next nights. And we've had those and I've been fortunate to have a lot of different encounters and experiences. And we've actually had that a number of times where they have come into camp, night after night after we go into their tents. And I do believe, I do believe that they know what the sound of a tent zipper means. They see us come in. I know.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we are. Well, no, but we're talking about, about these things like this, crazy things like tent zipper. Well, don't you think they've watched us go in and out of our tents all the time?
So I reacted that way because there's an experience I had in an expedition where I captured some audio at 3:45 in the morning in Iowa, and it's regarding a zipper, and it was no one in camp that actually manned the zipper.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had experiences where you've had a Bigfoot, mess around with a zipper or anything like that? Or
I've had my tent shaken multiple times.
Okay. Oh, wow.
I've had rubbing on the vestibule of my tent, and things like that. And then one time when we had them, coming into camp, it was I can't remember the second or third night. And my one friend and fellow investigator, her tent was, 30 feet away from mine, or, just over from mine. And anyway, I had gone into my tent, get my boots off and everything like that. I'm standing over my sleeping bag, not even in there yet. Yeah. And I hear her say, "Hello."
Oh no.
And there was rubbing on two sides of her tent. And she had she had some kind of this fly. It wasn't really her vestibule, but there was like a zipper there on the fly of the tent. And she heard that zipper start to go up.
Goodness,
and that's
really?
when she said, hello. And I'm standing there over my sleeping bag, and I'm like, what, already? I'm not even in the sack yet. And it's like, and they've already come into camp. Like, say, so
holy mackerel.
You explain that to me. Rubbing on two sides of that. It's not a bear pushing its nose into the side of the tent or anything like that. So I often will say to people, okay, you explain that to me. Rubbing on two sides of her tent, she hears a zipper move. And that,
wow, dude.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. So yeah. And, that's what we want. That's what I want. I want them to feel comfortable to come into camp, like that night after night, have experiences like that, have other people, have experiences and then, like I say, and I'm learning, then
yeah.
What are they doing? What are they attracted to? I want to learn about their behavior. When I read a report, when I interview somebody or read any report, talk to somebody, I'm like, well, what was the behavior of the Bigfoot? What was the Bigfoot doing? What were the people doing? Somebody will say, well, we just finished cooking dinner, over the campfire.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, what was for dinner?
Yeah.
what were you cooking?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was the smell?
Have you found, in your many different expeditions, have you found that there are certain things you were doing in camp? Maybe there was, something you were always doing that seemed to attract them in, or was it just mainly random?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just random stuff. But also part of my approach is that if I have to be their entertainment, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so I'm not a musician, but I do carry a wooden flute, Native American
cool.
wooden flute with me, a harmonica.
All right.
So, I'll try those. And
yeah, I've heard of, I know I have a few friends, researchers, Ron Man Reed's used a didgeridoo before, Tate Hieronymus used a bass guitar before.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of wild things that, it's getting their attention enough to have them come in. So I totally get what you're saying. What do you remember? Was there a point, looking back over the years where you finally were, there's no social media, there's no internet. Do you remember the point where you were able to finally find your like-minded, you found your first other Bigfoot researcher, and it wasn't just you doing stuff by yourself anymore? Or did you have people with you from the very get-go?
I've been fortunate that virtually all of my family are Bigfoot Bigfoot enthusiasts.
That's huge.
Yeah. So, I mean, to just have family there in camp that's like, we hear something, and then, everybody questions, could that have been a Bigfoot or not, and so that brings me to a couple things too. So I've been fortunate, like I say, to be with family members and
sure.
That too. Yeah. But then that brings me to a couple points also that, when you're out there camping and you hear something, it's like, I like to have 2 or more Bigfoot related things, vocalizations or whatever, or, so you hear a howl in the woods. Well, there's lots of things that howl in the woods. So can you give me something else? Did you hear howls, wood knocks? Did you go look for tracks the next day? Did you find some possible tracks, things like that. And then also I always like to say and keep in mind that almost all of the time it's going to be something else other than Bigfoot. But sometimes it can't be anything else except Bigfoot. So if I have that in my mind, then even if I see a track, rather than like, whoa, there's a Bigfoot track. No, first thing in my mind is I want to rule out, is that a bear double step track? Is
exactly.
that bear? Yeah, that bear, and one time, my friend and fellow investigator, we studied this track along a little tiny stream, and I don't know how long we studied that thing, and I was about ready to go. We couldn't tell if it was a bear double step or Bigfoot. I was about ready to go up back to the truck and get the casting material when we'd been there for so long that the light angle changed. And I mentioned, light angles, looking at tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the light angle changed, and all of a sudden we started to see something, and I'm like, oh, that could be a bear claw. Like that's like, no,
wow.
This looks like a bear double step.
Okay.
So, but like I say, that's why I like to get down on my knees and have my face right over a track. I like to, you need to look at it from different angles. I get down on your knees, look at it from the left, from the right, this and that. And so, yeah, we have pictures all over social media, but pictures just don't do them justice. The tracks, a lot of times there's just one picture, and I wasn't there. I didn't see what somebody else how they were examining a track or anything like that. So yeah, I just don't comment on like pictures like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Like I say, I wasn't there, and
right.
So many times because of the light angles and that, a picture just doesn't do it justice.
So you're going on, you have your family expeditions over the years where you're pretty much going hunting, or you're going camping with your family, but also looking for Bigfoot at the same time, is kind of how that sounds like to me. But also you've been involved with many actual BFRO expeditions, correct?
Yeah. I've organized and co-led.
Approximately how many of those do you think you've been involved with over the years?
I believe I've co-led, been a co-leader. I like to have a co-leader, and I believe 7 that I
cool.
Officially, yeah.
But
then I've been on others though too.
Okay. Oh,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just as a leader, co-leader.
Interesting. Are there any of those that stand out in your memories where you're like, wow, we had some really crazy stuff happen on that expedition that you could share?
The very first one that I went on.
Okay.
And I have this in my book that I thought it'd been, like I say, it'd been a while that I thought about doing something with that history that I had, that Roger Patterson history and that. And then I wanted to kind of get the word out about that. And so I wrote that in this little book that I did, Incessantly Bigfooting.
Yep.
And I also, then when you read the book, then my sense of humor takes over. So
definitely.
So there will be parts in there then that you're going to get some chuckles.
Hey, all right.
That's what I wanted. So,
yes.
Yeah. And so anyway, like say,
whether it's Kroger's Simple Truth Turkey or mac and cheese with Murray's English Cheddar or pie made with fresh Cosmic Crisp apples, there are many dishes we look forward to sharing during the holidays. And Kroger has all the fresh ingredients you need to turn today's holidays into tomorrow's memories. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Choose from a great selection of digital coupons and use them up to 5 times in one transaction. Check our app for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Getting that history out there. But so going back, so what was your question again? Was with
thinking over the years of the different expeditions you've either co-led or been a member of.
Yeah,
any that stand out that were wild.
The very first BFRO expedition that I went on, and I wrote about that in the Incessantly Bigfooting. There was an encounter I was involved with along with 2 other people, and I almost consider it more rare than a sighting, or as rare than a sighting, because we listened to this deer on the hillside right after dark, and we could follow it because it was blowing and blowing. And like I say, you'll have to check it out in the book because I have it all detailed. Yeah. When I got back to camp, my short-term memory was just there, and I took notes. I wrote down then what happened, the sequence of events, and so have that in my Bigfoot journal. And so that that I put in the book is right out of my notes, right out of my Bigfoot journal.
Okay.
And so it basically, to kind of sum up the story, though, without going into the ton of details that was in there, it looked like we actually interrupted a deer hunt that they were doing. Wow. Like I say, you just have to go through the details and everything before, and then even the next morning when we went to look for tracks and that on that hillside. And it was like there was, we think there was 4 of them, 3 at the minimum, that actually had like a deer drive, a deer ambush hunt go on.
That's intense. I mean, you can only imagine, like, you probably wouldn't want to step in front of a few Bigfoot as they're trying to hunt some deer, that they might not respond kindly to that. So that's, I don't know how I would react in that situation. Wow.
I mean, there's been witnesses that have seen, Bigfoot carrying a deer.
Oh, sure.
And things like that. Yeah. But it's like, we had this thing unfold, and it was like, it's like they were hunting this thing. It's like they had it corralled on the hillside. And when we got back to camp, and the deer we did not hear the deer escaped.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the deer, because of what we started doing, and then that messed things up. And so the deer did get away. And one lady back at camp said, "Oh, I'm glad the deer got away." And so, but So,
that's funny. Yeah. Do you, when you go out on an expedition over the years, have you had a recorder out and been capturing audio?
Yes.
Okay. Have you captured any cool stuff on audio?
Well, all kinds of things. I mean, everything from meowing, bobcats.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sure. So, and the audio really helps. I mean, when you're awakened in the middle of the night, and it sure sounds like there's something whooping, there's woos, but I review my audio and it's like, no, those were owls.
Yeah, exactly.
So the audio really helps you confirm, and it helps you rule out things then, and it helps you confirm what you did hear. And so the audio is valuable that way. I had something pop in my mind, an example. The one time they had heard some other people had heard some wood knocks.
Okay.
And I can't remember if they had heard 3 or 4. There was answering back and forth. So when I checked my audio and listening to it closely, I counted off in the distance, then too were knocks. I counted 11.
Wow.
Yeah. So it can help you. So yeah, it's like, okay, somebody in camp heard like 3 wood knocks or whatever, 3 or 4. You go to your audio and wow, I counted 11.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, the audio is valuable. I'm not a believer much in, I use them, but I'm not really have much confidence with trail cameras. Okay. I believe that they know that they're there. They can see them.
I hear that a lot, where that seems to be the consensus, where unless you could get a non-electronic trail cam, good luck. Something is given off and it wigs them out. I don't know, but something I wanted to talk to you about that I found interesting is you were actually involved with the Jack Osborne and Jason Mewes Bigfoot special on Discovery Plus. How did walk me through how did that come about? Did you just get randomly contacted, or how was that?
Well, because I have published reports through the BFRO.
Sure.
So so those reports are out there to the public, and they read the reports of what's gone on in the past in an area, and I was contacted and other investigators too, but I was on there. My part was a campfire sit down with Jack Osborne and Jason Muse, and everybody was a blast, those two and the entire crew. And so everybody was great. And it was filmed in North Idaho.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you'll get a glimpse of beautiful North Idaho. And it was great. So it's streaming on Discovery Plus.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. Have you been involved with any other media like that over the years, or?
Not really, not too much.
Okay.
No, that way.
All right.
Yeah.
Man, this has been a extremely fun chat. I've talked to a few other investigators that have been on BFRO chat or BFRO expeditions, and it's always fun. Let's say you have someone new coming to the expedition, or like they're a newer investigator, right? Are there certain things that you want to make sure that they know before they come in with the rest of the investigators on the expedition?
Well, yeah, everybody has their own approach, doing things. And if it's working for you, keep doing what you're doing, but so, every leader or every expedition is going to have maybe a little different angle, different approach, too. But like I say, my approach then is to get them, the new people then too, is get them thinking about and share with them things to do to to bring up the curiosity of Bigfoot. That if they're in the area at all, they hear us coming into the area. They know we're there.
Sure.
Unless they're 30 miles away. But so if they're around, we want to encourage encounters and get some experiences for people. And like I say, I encourage them to think out of the box of different things to try and do, and get that curiosity going. So,
very nice. Have you, over the years, been out in the woods, looking for Bigfoot, investigating? Have you ever run into anything that you couldn't explain, but you're pretty sure it wasn't Bigfoot related? Any weird stuff happen when you're out in the woods that was kind of like, I don't know what's going on here?
Yeah. You mean, you mean like,
I mean, it's a pretty open-ended question, Kevin, so it's wherever you want to take it, but
yeah. Okay. You mean like lights?
Yeah, some people bring up lights, anything that's like, that's weird. I'm not sure what's
I've seen flashes of lights go through the forest. One time I believe it was like snow lightning, because because there was a front coming in, and half hour later, an hour later, started snowing on us. So I believe that one time that, like say, it was snow lightning,
sure.
That if that's what they call it. But I've seen flashes of light through the woods. I've seen the orbs, balls of light too.
Yeah.
I've had one time I had strange lights go across the wall of my tent.
Wow.
And so
that's awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So yeah. And I, of course, some people, try to associate these things with Bigfoot, and that, and I'm just like, and the one time that I had the lights on my tent wall, I had my pop-up shade canopy out in front of my tent. Okay. And so not only the roof, but I also had a shade wall on it too. And I had rubbing on the shade wall and tapping on the roof of the shade canopy before these lights occurred. And and yeah, so it's like, okay, could that have been a Bigfoot? Is this Bigfoot behavior or a Bigfoot encounter? But then these lights, and so these things that I've seen like that, I just leave it as a mystery. I'm not going to try to explain it, what was going on, but I do try to do, recreations, and I tried, and that's important too, if you can, and like I say, even if you, well, first of all, let me say with the lights, I use, different kind of flashlights, headlamps, a couple different models of headlamps and things like, and I was trying to do this, there was some kind of a flashlight or somebody in camp. And of course you ask around the next morning, were you shining a flashlight?
Right.
And so you investigate and follow up, do things like that, do recreation. And so even like, it's not recreating seeing a Bigfoot, but like this summer too, there was 3 of us in the morning. We were hiking this trail, and not a trail that's a Forest Service trail that has a trailhead and parking spots, at the start of it. We were back in the mountains on this trail, and we were paralleled. We had this paralleling.
Oh, wow.
Experience. So, so I say, well, recreate it. Well, how do you recreate a paralleling experience? Well, we went out the same time the next morning, same weather conditions, same thing, and there was no sounds. There was none of the branch breaks, twig snaps, the thumping that happened the first morning.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you can follow up on things like that, if you see a Bigfoot, can you go back? And a lot of people are afraid. They don't want to. Hunters will see a Bigfoot. They don't want to go. They give up hunting. They don't.
Yeah, they don't go back in the woods for years.
They don't go back in the forest. But if you can go back and look for tracks and things like that, and if you do have the chance, if something like say is following you or paralleling you, you have some kind of an encounter like that, try to recreate it. Go back. Okay. So like just a week ago. The hunting seasons here in Northeast Washington are in full swing, and deer season is on. And I was out there. I was in a deer stand, and there were these doe and out in front of me, and they were just blowing and blowing and blowing. And down at the other end of the meadow, the opening, there was more blowing back at them. And the first thing, that I think of is, well, okay, have they caught scent of me? Are they? Yeah, they're doing that. If all your listeners know what the blowing that the deer do like that they're taking in the scent, and then they expel the air out. Gotcha. So all of a sudden, then there's a wood knock behind me, followed by a light tap. I call it more of a tap rather than a knock. And I'm like, I'm watching these deer, and then I'm like, what? A knock? What? What's that? Well, was it a knock? And then after that knock occurred, the deer did settle down. But
that's weird.
Well, but everything that knocks in the forest is not a Bigfoot. True. A wood knock. Could it have been a tree that was cooling down with the temperatures? It was an hour before sunset. And so could it have been a tree that had popped or was popping? Well, I was back there in that same deer stand for 3 afternoons following that. And I never heard any tree pop. No.
Yeah, it's interesting. And similar weather each day.
Exactly. Yeah. We've had a weather pattern here that's just been same thing every day, warm, way above average temperatures, and until the last 2 days now that we've got rain. So, but yeah, I was out there, and so that's where, if you can, like I say, so yeah.
It's some wild stuff, Kevin.
Yeah, and try to keep, and so then try to keep investigating like that. Try to follow up. Like, okay, well, yeah, was that just a tree that popped? It was popping a couple times. Well, go back under the same weather conditions, go back the next day and see, are you hearing trees do that or
yeah,
not?
no, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I like the word investigate because it implies that we're being a detective. You know, we're looking into this, we're following up on things and looking into things.
There's a few questions that I always like to ask, especially people I talk to that are primarily focused on Bigfoot. So they're pretty straightforward too. So, what do you believe that Bigfoot is? How do you describe what we're dealing with?
I think they are, you know, a primate, you know,
Sure.
and very close to us. I think they're very, very close to us. And I think they're intelligent and they know how to hide and escape from us, you know, to hardly be seen at all. You know, I mean, I guess my own sighting that I had, what was it, trying to hide behind that boulder? You know, thinking that we would not see it. And then, but anyway, yeah, I do think that they, as a veterinarian, I approach things, you know, biologically. Exactly. Yeah. And everything like that. And even with, of course, population, you know, people, well, how many do you think are out there? You know, and this and that. It's like, well, who, you know, pick a number. Who knows? Nobody really knows. But we can estimate. And so biologically, though, I think it was 2017, the American Scientist had an article, and these scientists were trying to come up with a population number, kind of a minimum number for what they were doing though too is they were doing plants and animals. But yeah, like rare plants, how many would it take to keep that species going? And or if you're talking about some rare frog or some kind of a mammal, they came up with a number then that 5,000 would be a great number for long-term evolutionary success.
Wow.
They said that 500 would probably then, you know, would maybe be enough to stop a lot of inbreeding. So, but 5,000 would be, you know, definitely a great number for long-term success. So I look at things like that, then it's like, you know, okay, you know, there's some numbers there. But when it comes to Bigfoot, I don't know. I'm not.
Sure.
I'm not going to say. Right. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard a number. I've heard, you know, a number like in Idaho. You know, it's like, oh, there's so many in Idaho. It's like, I think there's more than that. You know, and so yeah. And you want to, like, say, you can't have a lot of inbreeding. I think a lot of sightings, then especially crossing highways and things like that, are maybe young males that are traveling. Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
Migrating or traveling long miles to go find and start a family unit of their own.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. That's a lot of people I've talked to in where I'm from Iowa. They think that the primary population it's a migration thing going through the state. Definitely.
Yeah. And here in the Pacific Northwest, I mean, you know, obviously they don't know where the Washington Idaho state line is, or the Canadian state line. So we can't. So if you're talking about populations, it's like, well, okay, we got to look at British Columbia, we got to look at the Washington Cascades, Northeast Washington, North Idaho. You know, so you got to start looking at all of that and not just saying, well, there's a family unit here, there's a family unit there. It's like, you know.
Has there been a piece of evidence that has been most influential to you over the years as a researcher?
Well, of course, having the sighting and then getting a track to go with. Yeah. So it's, you know, there's two things right there: sighting and something else to follow up. And we've found, I didn't find it, but it was part of the group that I was with. Some others found some hair, and and it did not have, you know, the bone marrow type center and
exactly.
And things. Yeah, we had it checked and analyzed, and so anyway, things like that. Looking for, if you see one, and we were talking about trying to have 2 or more things with an encounter. So if you see one, if there really is one peeking out from behind a tree looking at you, then can you go back later and look for hair?
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean? Yeah, that's a good point.
So like last year we had these couple guys where they didn't see it because it stopped behind this really large tree, and then there was a group of fir trees right around it, but they were like bluff charged.
Oh,
they had this that charged towards and stopped, and they said it sounded like a racehorse breathing back there.
Wow.
So what do? We go back the next morning, and so what do we want to do? We want to rule out elk. So we were looking for elk tracks. Was it an elk breathing, or something like that? We were looking then for elk tracks right there where it stopped, and we were combing the bark for hair.
Cool.
We couldn't find anything, but that's what you want to do. It's like, follow up with things like that. And one more thing to add too is I always say, push the record button, get video. Not just pictures. We want to see.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Okay.
We want to see arms swinging. We want to see, a head turn, legs moving. Okay, so no more pictures on social media. Video. We want video.
You want the evidence, the video evidence. Is what you're saying. Not just the photos with the red circles around them. There's a question I almost forgot to ask you. So let's say you're going to your base camp for your expedition base camp. When do you start recording to catch sounds? What's your viewpoint on that?
Well, right away.
Okay.
I mean, get an audio recorder hung out there right away, and so, and of course, we can get into battery life and things like that. You can, you don't have to spend a lot of money on audio recorders. I do have a couple that were fairly expensive. The Wildlife Acoustics audio recorders, and I can program them. I can have them come on an hour before sunset, 2 hours before sunset. I can have them run 24 hours a day. And so a lot of times I'll have them come on, 1 or 2 hours before sunset, and run to an hour or 2 hours after sunrise. But then the problem is, if you hear something that's 30 minutes before my audio recorder has come on, that it's programmed to come on, if you hear something 30 minutes beforehand, it's like, oh no, I didn't have the audio going. So, but something like that is really nice, where I can set the program or have, have it come on off. And then the battery life, it'll go for, weeks then. So having it programmed.
From that, I'm gathering that there are certain times of day that are most important to make sure you're recording for potential Bigfoot sounds to happen.
Yeah, not only Bigfoot sounds, but then, like say, other things then too, just during that are out at night. Like say that the one time I listened to my audio and there's like meow, meow,
right,
and it's like, and I'm like, what? That's not what I'm listening for. And it's like, okay, a bobcat walked under the audio recorder.
Totally.
So you like say. There's a lot more things in the forest, or more things that are more common in the forest than Bigfoot. So a lot of times you're going to hear something that's not Bigfoot. And so that's where then, having the audio going like that.
Man, it would be cool if there would be a way to deploy an audio recorder to a place before you drive into it. So you can get if they're, if there's like warning knocks or something as you're driving into the area.
Oh, I've had that. Yeah. I've had that happen.
Oh, really?
I pulled in, you know, we know that there's a campsite, you know, that's been used for years and years, you know, the fire ring is there and I'm going to meet my friend there or something like that. You know, it's like, okay, well, we'll meet at that campsite, you know, or whatever. And I pull in there and I step out of my truck and knocks greet me.
Wow.
So I've had, I've had that happen, you know. So then again, I believe they're smart. They're watching places where people camp, or do they have, you know, a sentry, a spy, you know, that's there, that's watching different campsites, you know. So they know when we get there, when we come in, and then it's a matter of, you know, it's like, okay, hey, you know, we mean no harm. You know, we want you to be curious of what we're doing. Yep. And try to get them like, you know, oh, what are these people doing? You know, they're having some fun here. You know, doesn't look like they're hunting, you know, the deer or anything like that. Yeah, it's like.
That's funny. Over the years, have you been primarily focused on Bigfoot, or have there been other cryptids that you've been interested in / looked into? Is it just primarily been Bigfoot?
Yeah, primarily Bigfoot.
Okay.
I mean, I'm open to, you know, other stories and listening about things, you know, and
sure.
Yeah, and maybe when I'm interviewing somebody, something will come up about some other, you know, cryptid, and yeah, it's like I'll listen, you know, to it and everything like that. But as far as, you know, yeah, like doing reports for the BFRO, you know, yeah, you know, it's Bigfoot.
Sure.
Yeah. And I've even seen that said, you know, it's like, well, how come there's not any Dogman reports on, you know, BFRO, you know,
where it's like, BFRO.
Well, yeah, where is the word Dogman in Bigfoot Field Research Authority? You know, it's like,
look up the North American Dogman Project, you know?
Right. Yeah. And so, I'm into Bigfoot. Yeah.
Okay. Have you gotten Dogman reports from your areas, or people that try to give you Dogman stuff? Or
I've heard one investigator saw something that he wasn't sure what it was, and I've had some other, you know, I'm not going to say what they were, what the people saw, but they're some
weird stuff,
different things, that
gotcha.
People have.
Some weird stuff out there.
A lot of mysteries, and that's what I love.
That's exactly, you know, why I do this, is try to figure out the weird mysteries of the world, and there's a lot of it is focused on, you know, cryptids and Bigfoot, hence the name. But Kevin, it's been extremely fun and enlightening talking to you today. I want to make sure, you know, to give you the chance, if there's anything we haven't covered that you were wanting to make sure, you know, that we cover, you know, now is the chance to throw it on in, or anything like that.
Yeah. I just, you know, following up with, like, you know, like when I mentioned, you know, getting their attention, you were setting up camp, get their attention, you know, and it's like, well, I think too that their eyesight is so good. You know, they can tell, am I pulling my walking stick out of my truck, or am I pulling a rifle?
Wow.
So I think they know, you know, they can tell. And so that's, you know, like I say, everybody has their own approach, but, you know, over the years, I've been able to come up with my approach, and I like it, and I'm going to keep trying it. And it's playing on their curiosity. And remember, press the record button.
Yeah, press the record button, guys. That's for sure. Kevin, awesome chat today. Do you mind taking a few minutes reminding people how they can either keep up to date with what you're doing, or, you know, definitely want to mention your book again, all that good stuff you got going on?
Yeah, it's I did write the little book. It's an easy read, a fun read, and like I say, my sense of humor does take over a little later in the book, and so it should be fun to read, and I'd recommend, you know, to read it through, and then read it through a second time, because I think you're going to pick up on Bigfoot behaviors and things that I'm referring to, even though I'm maybe having some fun with what has happened with myself and my friends and fellow investigators. And so I make a little fun of the technology or whatever that we're doing, but yet it's based on true stories, then too. And but you'll have some fun with it. And I have the Bigfoot behaviors and investigating Bigfoot in there, things to do and what we were doing, and but then I make fun of it a little bit. And
right.
But yeah, it's and I do have it's available on Amazon. I do have a second book that's about 75-80% written.
Oh, awesome.
That I'm working on. Yeah. But I think you'll have fun with this one. The cover was a photo that I took of the sun setting behind Mount Rainier in the Washington Cascades. Yeah. So if you open up the cover, the book like this,
nice.
There's Mount Rainier like that. And so, beautiful. Yeah, have fun out there, be safe. I know my dad taught me from the very beginning, hey, the woods and the mountains are wonderful. They're fantastic, but they can also be dangerous. So stay safe and have fun out there.
Love it. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Bigfoot Society. If you like the show, please review and rate it 5 stars on iTunes. Hit the share button and send this episode to all your friends on social media. Subscribe to Bigfoot Society wherever you listen to podcasts. It doesn't cost a thing. Pick up a Bigfoot Society shirt or enamel pin over on our Etsy page, and people will tell you all about their Bigfoot sightings when you wear it. At least that's what people tell us. That's what happens. If you'd like to become an official member of Bigfoot Society with a membership card, a community of like-minded individuals, and extra content each month, then please consider becoming a supporter of the podcast by going to www.patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. Thanks for listening.